Previously on Yu-Gi-Oh! History, we took a look at Necroz format. The new ritual archetype swarmed the meta scene, redefining how a ritual deck could function, as well as bringing a powerful lock that prevented your opponent from special summoning, called the Jin Lock. While other top decks could counter this, like Burning Abyss and Ritual Beast, the common sentiment was either you were with Necroz or against them. The culmination of the first half of 2015 was exciting, if not controversial, which brings us to July, where a new list awaits. The July 2015 list didn't hold any punches when it came to ending the annoying Jin Lock by banishing Jin Releaser Rituals and Lavalval Chain, two critical pieces. Plus, sure it getting limited, Konami was certainly aware of player sentiment towards the once meta-viable strategy. Aside from Trishula being banned, Crush Card Virus and Ring of Destruction staying in limited despite their erratic contemporaries coming off the list, there isn't much to discuss here aside from the primary hit on Necroz. It's the same deal with the next collector's pack in Dragons of Legend 2, which didn't feature much aside from much needed toon support like Toon Kingdom and Comic Hand. How many of these I had to pull to only pull one Toon Kingdom, I will never know. What would be worth discussing is the new core set released on August 7th, Clash of Rebellions. Boy, did this set add a lot to the game. Where do I begin? Firstly, we received a ton of Red Eye support, like Archfiend Black Skull Dragon, Blackstone of Legend, Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, and Red Eyes Fusion. If only all the high rarity cards were more affordable for casual play. Infernoid also received a much needed starter in Decatron and decent tools otherwise in Tierra and Void Imagination. Other notable singleton cards include Retaliating Sea, Stormy Mirror Force, Chicken Game, Wavering Eyes, and Brilliant Fusion. But the main impact from core had to be the new archetypes. Ignite is a new normal pendulum archetype designed around popping cards to search. Funny how Konami seems to enjoy their normal pendulums like Klee. While their searching power is indeed respectable, it does ultimately cost resources. Thus, the deck would only see one top early on in the following meta. Cosmo would be a more notable new addition as a clever combination of Star Wars and Wizard of Oz. This TCG exclusive archetype revolves around low-level pilot monsters that can bring out powerful ships like Cosmo Sliprider and Cosmo Forerunner. These higher-level monsters have strong effects that usually end up rotating back into the pilots. Humble beginnings, much like the other current main TCG archetype, Burning Abyss. In regards to the heaviest drop, that had to be Perform Mages. While nothing to note as a basic deck, the use of some of these cards as an engine in other top decks made waves. Damage Juggler could be discarded for damage protection and can be banished from the grave to search for another Perform Mage. Hat Tricker can be easily special summoned from the hand, which is great for extensions. Trick Clown, when sent to the grave, can special summon a fellow dead Perform Mage. And the rank 4 Trapeze Magician can give a monster a second attack and can bring out a Perform Mage from the deck if Magician is destroyed. Plenty of easy to use, generic cards for a variety of game moves. Clash of Rebellions is a core set that certainly made a mark, befitting its prefix, core. While these cards wouldn't be legal at the upcoming World Championship on August 15th, surprises were still made. There were a variety of play decks such as Hero, which was a popular strategy in Japan. Cleaforts were showcased, as well as Harpies. After all, Burning Abyss was not legal and Shaddols were hit in the OCG, making for a gap in power. Despite all the Necroz hype building up to this major event, it only reached second, which is, still fair, losing to Hiyama Shunsuke playing Teller Knights of all decks. What? I suppose its heavy control strategy was enough to counter Necroz, now the deck wasn't able to use its previously scary Jin Lock. Which brings us to the next YCS season, where Duelists will attempt to win the powerful Lightsworn Xyz, Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn. The first two YCSs took place on the same day, on August 29th, the YCS Rimini and Toronto. Rimini would be won by Necroz, showing that the past top deck was still powerful past the lock. More so now since it adopted the Clown engine to make up for lost strength. Familiar decks would return here, with new decks raising some eyebrows. Cosmo would get 5th, using Emergency Teleport to get its pilots out to start their plays. Infernoid and Yang Xing would also top, proving that the meta was anything but defined yet. Toronto would have a similar story, just with BA winning instead of Necroz. We'd still see other decks like Satellar Knight, Ritual Beast, and Shaddoll fail to impress regardless of previous success. Enter September and there'd be a single YCS, this time at Monterrey, Mexico, where BA would once again win with a build only running 2 spells in the main deck. What the month was known for better was the release of the Mega Tins that contained reprints aplenty. This was phenomenal as it reprinted a ton of meta-viable cards that reduced the gate of entry. It also included a new card in Elder Entity Norden that, when combined with Instant Fusion, allowed for a quick fire way to bring out a rank 4 monster, or maybe more. So whether it was for Dante, Scout, Construct, or Arclight, the 2015 tins definitely raised the bar when it came to this concept. October would soon arrive with the booster set, High Speed Riders. This smaller set included new tools for the Synchro deck, like the new Speedroid and Psyframe archetypes. That said, all eyes were on YCS Dallas on the 3rd. This would be the tentpole event for Clown format, as the meta was starting to settle by this point. Decks of new and old like Necroz, Burning Abyss, and Cosmo would top, and even a new deck would arise in Clownblade. This fun-sounding deck is a rank 4 paradise, playing with affordable level 4 extenders like the popular Clown cards, Heroic Challenger Assault Halberd, Gigabyte, and Retaliating Sea. Though cheap it may be, the top dog here was one waiting in the shadows for months: Infernoid. Eric Christensen understood that the deck had untapped potential given its plethora of beefy monsters, and now that it had a low-level starter, all it took was a skilled enough duelist. Sure, the deck had consistency issues, however the recently released Psyframelord Omega could disrupt the many combo decks by banishing opposing cards, returning banished cards, and shuffling back opponents' graveyard cards. This high-speed rider was exactly what Christensen needed to trip up opponents who were not expecting such a powerful synchro monster to propel a lower-tier deck to victory. While Omega was skyrocketing in price, November 6th would bring the next core set, Dimension of Chaos. Even though it isn't as hefty as core was, Doc still had plenty of usable new tools to affect the metagame. Starting off with Cosmo support, the deck now includes more options with even greater potential for power. Cosmo's Strawman and Dark Destroyer both give the deck more consistency and explosive range respectively. Speaking of support, we also got Performage Plushfire, which aside from looking simply adorable, can float into another Performage from hand or deck. Due to pendulum mechanics, Plushfire could even get its monster effect off should it be destroyed as a pendulum spell, since it's a monster once it's destroyed, an effect that's not once per turn, something that would get errata in Animation Chronicle 2024. That lack of a limit was the scariest part, due to the fact that pendulums can be summoned each turn. But until that reprint, Plushfire was seen as a phenomenal Performage release. Lastly, there's the new archetype, Magispector. This is a pendulum deck that passes on pendulum spell effects in favor of on-summon effects. They also typically cannot be targeted nor destroyed by opposing card effects. In addition, their back row support tributes the monsters for general effects like destruction and banishing capabilities, which pendulums don't mind as much. Thus, we wind up with a control deck with powerful back row cards for monsters with already base level protection, all to make up for their inherent pendulum weaknesses and otherwise low stats. The new set would only have one connecting YCS before the next major historical checkpoint. At YCS San Jose on November 7th, everything Clown format was building up to exploded here. Top Cut would be sprinkled with different decks like BA, Necroz, and Shaddoll, all 2015 staples. We'd also see Magispector make an immediate impact incorporating the Clown engine and even dabbling in Clownblade strats. Hey, we all do it once in our lives. Pendulums certainly had enough tools in the toolbox to make any new deck function to a respectable capacity, especially when you add Core's Ignister Prominence, the Blasting Draco Slayer, to the mix. This synchro is great for getting pens into the extra deck and shuffling a card back into the deck. Unfortunately, it was not Dracos that needed to be slain, rather the beings from a galaxy far, far away, Cosmos. It's not Kansas anymore, as San Jose would be the tournament where Jesse Samick would steer the newly buffed archetype to its first YCS win. The main new addition for the deck was Reasoning, which worked extremely well since the main deck monsters featured a variety of levels in both pilots and ships. But also, the writing was on the wall for many of the decks of old with a new listen pending. So it makes sense for more top players to pilot the pilots rather than test the new Pendulum deck or keep working with old strategies. Yet, YCS San Jose was not without controversy. There were a few judging mistakes, such as Dark Destroyer targeting Magispectors, Magispector Cyclone targeting Destroyer, Plushfire not getting its effect off if it was destroyed in the Pendulum Zone, and Magispector Tempest negating a summon. Some of these issues could simply be coverage mistakes rather than illegal moves, although more instances like Omega activating its effect without turn priority, and Strawman not destroying its summoned monster via its second effect if Strawman was removed from the field, only adds upon the awkwardness behind the coverage of San Jose. On a more personal note, this was around the time when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! After years of leaving the game for the first time towards the end of GX. While I didn't start playing the game again until a little later, November 2015, it was during Clown format where I fell back in love with dual monsters. Seeing Necroz and Cosmo go at it was a ton of fun. A lot of the decks in this format had a respectable speed and relatable power. It is fair to criticize the heavy use of the Clown engine or the legality of docks, however, since the introduction of Magispector, Plushfire, and Cosmo support did change the overall meta slightly, at least from a historical perspective. Regardless, the meta was diverse with a different deck winning almost every YCS with only one exception, Worlds included. You could play just about any extra deck mechanic, and even a more main deck oriented strategy in Cosmo. Top decks being BA, Infernoid, Cosmo, and Necroz, with other competent decks including Satellar Knight, Ritual Beast, Shadal, Yangzing, Magispector, Clownblade, Cleafort, and Ignite. Shame we didn't see Toons or Red Eyes break past the local scene. But what do you all think? Was this an overall healthy environment? Was the removal of the Jinlock and addition of Perform Mages a fair trade-off? Which top deck do you truly believe was the clear winner here? Because I think they're all great questions to ask, showing the amount of strategies that were viable throughout the latter half of 2015, even if certain elements started to settle by the year's tail end. Indeed, the upcoming November list and following core set would once again steer Yu-Gi-Oh! Into turbulent waters, which is something we'll get to next time.